without much further ado, I'd like to introduce the Executive Artistic Director of MetroArts, Niel DePonte.
Thank you and good morning. This is a very exciting moment for MetroArts Inc., the first Creating Minds Symposium. The symposium will be an annual event, bringing together nationally and internationally recognized speakers on the subject of education and connecting them to state and local policymakers, legislators, education leaders, teachers, the business, and the arts communities. The mission of the Creating Minds Symposium is to stimulate and inform an ongoing discussion on the kind of student our educational system should be producing, or perhaps could be producing, to meet the needs of society in the 21st century. The Creating Minds Symposium will examine how to produce such thinkers and is designed to motivate people to take action. Expanding access to high-quality education, much of it focused in the creative processes and how to think in ways that Dr. Gardner is going to outline for you this morning. It presents a unique opportunity, I feel, for community collaboration and cross-sector dialogue, breakthrough thinking, and stimulating interchange between the stakeholders in the area of education. And of course, in this case, our featured speaker, Dr. Gardner of Harvard University. I would be remiss if I did not thank some very special partners. There have been many who have helped to produce these 2 days. We will, of course, as I mentioned, do this annually. We will look forward to seeing all of you on a yearly basis. In that, again, we're trying to create something of a cohort, if you will, of interested people who want to see change in the education system and want to see it move into the areas of needed change for our 20th century economy and society. But the thank yous to the folks who are making this possible are very important to me, as this idea is brand new to MetroArts Inc. Young Audiences of Oregon and Southwest Washington's Executive Director Dale Hayes Davis, the Lewis and Clark Center of Community Engagement, the good folks you've seen helping you in the door and taking your tickets, they have been critical to the success of this. I'd like to thank their director, Sherry Carricker, and my partners in educational crime, my good friends from the Lewis and Clark Graduate School of Education, the Dean Scott Fletcher and Associate Dean Janet Bixby. MetroArts Inc., in case you don't know, is an educational nonprofit organization that I founded in 1993, and our slogan is Teaching for Creativity. Some of you in the audience may know me as a professional musician. I'm the music director and conductor for Oregon Ballet Theater and the principal percussionist of the Oregon Symphony. And I know my boss is here, so I have to plug Sleeping Beauty opens Saturday night at the Keller. It's going to be fantastic. As I mentioned, MetroArts' slogan is Teaching for Creativity and was created to further critical thinking, creative processing, and problem-solving skills in the classroom. I may seem a musician to many people in Portland, but I'm actually the child of educators and proud of it. In that the arts are one effective way to accomplish this mission, MetroArts is focused on programs that are arts-centric for this purpose. We have now run 17 years of the MetroArts Kids Camp at the Portland Center for Performing Arts, and I've developed a curriculum that's based in creative processes as taught through the arts at the camp. I also work with teachers quite a bit, and I have in conjunction with the Oregon Symphony's education programming, and always enjoy working with people in the field to discuss the possibilities for integrating the arts with the core curricular subject areas. So the Creating Minds Symposium represents a new thrust for us at MetroArts Inc. As we move forward as a primary advocate for creativity education in particular, and we also want to be seen in the community as a voice for educational and curricular reform in our region. But you're not here to hear me, you're here to hear two wonderful speakers. I get to introduce the first one. My good friend and colleague, Dr. Howard Gardner, is best known in educational circles for his theory of multiple intelligences, a critique of the notion that there exists but a single human intelligence that can be adequately assessed by standard psychometric instruments. In his 2007 book, 5 Minds for the Future, Dr. Gardner explains the kinds of mental abilities or minds that will be critical to success in the 21st century environment of rapid change and information overload. Dr. Gardner will, of course, go into that in detail, but these minds are not put forward as personality types, but are put forward as ways of thinking available to anyone who invests the time and effort to cultivate it. As many of you know, Dr. Gardner was a founding member of Project Zero at Harvard University, a group that is dedicated to the study of higher cognitive processes with a special focus on creativity and the arts. More recently, Dr. Gardner has been involved in the Good Work Project, an effort to identify individuals and institutions that exemplify work that is excellent in quality, socially responsible, and meaningful to its practitioners, and to determine how to best increase the incidence of good work in society. Dr. Gardner is the John H. and Elizabeth A. Hobbs Professor of Cognition and Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. He also holds positions as Adjunct Professor of Psychology at Harvard University and Senior Director of Harvard Project Zero. Among numerous honors, Dr. Gardner has received the MacArthur Prize Fellowship in 1981. In 2005 and again in 2008, he was selected by Foreign Policy and Prospect magazines as one of the 100 most influential public intellectuals in the world. MetroArts Inc., and indeed all of us here, would be fabulously happy, I know, to welcome warmly and give a warm welcome to Dr. Howard Gardner.
Thanks, Neil, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
That means you can hear me. Yeah. Okay, well, please let me know if that ceases to be the case. I'm gratified to be here in Portland and to be learning about the many activities and connections between the arts and educational and corporate communities that Niel DePonte has brought together for these 2 days. It's unusual, and it's not something that is easily done anywhere. And for those of you who don't know Niel, he's revealed that he is the director of MetroArts and a musician, both with the orchestra and the ballet company. But I can also tell you that the machines are working today, and the door got opened, and my suitcase got picked up because Neil did it. He's a man for all seasons and all reasons, and a jewel in your community. I'm going to talk this morning about a book I published a few years ago, and actually I typically ignore the introduction because I've heard it 1,000 times before, and you probably ignore it as well. With all due respect, you don't want to hear about my previous work. But Neil actually said something important which hasn't been said. I knew that was a compliment. He didn't just read, what's on the website, and that is that these minds are not personality types. They're ways of thinking, they're skills which people can and should acquire. And that's an important point because they're often assimilated to personality or character types, which is not what I have in mind. Anyway, I will talk for about 45 or 50 minutes about 5 Minds for the Future. I have to admit that when word reached me, the word reached you that I was coming here, I got many emails, each of which said, "I'm glad you're speaking. I want you to talk about X or Y or Z or A or B or C." And said, look, there are going to be a lot of people in the church. I have to give a standard talk, but I hope that in the discussion afterwards with the superintendents, and maybe there'll be time for questions from the audience, we can get to some of your pet notions. But if I were to give a talk completely about one topic, whether it's digital media or arts education or interdisciplinary work, then it would not be fair to those of you who come for another letter, like Epsilon. Maybe. So here's the fairly simple plan. And some of you may have a little difficulty seeing the slides. Don't worry about them. They're very uncreative, they're very unimaginative. They're basically designed to keep you from wandering. And if they do that, then it's their purpose. I've already given you a couple of disclaimers, but the one that's important is if you know me as the multiple intelligences guy, then you may think, oh, Gardner used to think there were 8 or 9 intelligences, and he's dropped 3 or 4. You're way ahead of me. When I wrote about the intelligences, something which I continue to believe in, I was putting forth a scientific hypothesis. Very briefly, I was saying, rather than having a single organ in the mind brain, which either works well or average or poorly, and how well it works determines how you will be good at how you will do in everything, I was instead putting forth a hypothesis that the mind brain is better thought of as a number of relatively independent faculties. So, clearly Niel is very good in music, but we don't really know how good he is in understanding other people, or his spatial orientation, or in his logic. The same thing could be said about anybody else. That's the basic intuition behind MI theory. In 5 Minds for the Future, I was writing as a policymaker. I was saying, if I had a lot of input in what should be cultivated in education, which is more than schools, it's media, community, and family, and it's more than young people, because by and large, you people are not so young, but you're still continuing your education. What are the 5, as Niel said, the 5 kinds of thinking skills that we would hope to inculcate in people? And I picked 5 which I thought were important, and 5 that I thought was worth writing about. But even since then, I would add 2 more, but I keep it in suspense until later. I keep myself in suspense and I remember when they are. So we're talking about the future, and at Harvard, and I know some of you have been to our summer institutes at Harvard, we have a working group on the future of learning, and this is kind of serious. And we're going to hear from some superintendents now, and I bet you every superintendent has this in mind, these futures, and yet, while I'm not going to impose my provocative, heterodox, and unorthodox views on you yet, I will say that I think education in America and in most of the world is really preparing people for the 19th and 20th century. And there isn't nearly enough attention to globalization, the emergence of megacities and new powers and cultures, international brands, essentially one market, about $2 trillion circulate each day. And I didn't understand why we had a serious recession-depression in September of 2008 until I learned that Lehman Brothers had contractual relationships with guess how many other financial and business entities in the world. Just think to yourself, I would have said 200, 300, 8,000. So when a company connected 8,000 other companies goes belly up, that's why things which used to take years take days. So that's globalization. What are we doing in thinking about how to deal with this totally reconfigured world?